Good evening. Welcome to the Bennington Select Board's meeting on November 11th. Happy Veterans Day. We're glad to have you all here with us, either in person or on the television. My name is Donald Campbell. I'm the chair, and I'd love to have the board introduce themselves. They always wonder if I'm going to start on the left or the right, but tonight, let's start with you, Stuart.
I'm Stuart Hurd, Town Manager.
Good evening, I'm Jean Connor.
Good evening, Bruce Lee Clark.
Good evening, I'm Jim Carroll.
Hello, I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Good evening, Chad Gordon.
And Nancy Lively, Secretary.
So, tonight we'll follow our tradition of saying the Pledge of Allegiance, but it is Veterans Day. It's a day that we like to remember the people who have worked so hard for our country and have given so much. So why don't we say the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll ask Jim to lead us, and then we'll take a moment of silence to reflect on those who we know that are involved, and we'll pick up the meeting after that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and happy Veterans Day. So our first order of business tonight is to go over the consent agenda. This is the minutes of October 28th, 2019, and the warrants which have been circulated and reviewed. If you have not had a chance to get your questions to Stuart, now is the time on the warrants. May I have for purposes of discussion, may I have a motion to move these forward, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on either the minutes or the warrants tonight? Barring none, I'd say all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay.
I'll
Unanimous.
abstain since I was not here for some of it.
One abstention. So we have an opportunity for public comment tonight. Nobody has signed up, so there will be no public comment tonight. We'll move on to item 4, which is the public hearing of the Corcoran's Way acceptance. Stuart, would you like to lead us in this?
Sure. This arose when the subdivision was really originally contemplated. Habitat for Humanity approached the town about the possibility of taking over this as a public highway. In order to do so, they have to meet certain criteria. In this particular case, all of the criteria have been met, except there is one home that is unfinished, and there is a former curb cut on North Branch Street that ultimately must be closed. The road obviously has a 50-foot right-of-way, it's paved, has sidewalks on both sides, and the municipal water and sewer has been installed and has been tested and confirmed by its engineer to meet the requirements. So I think if there is someone from the Habitat who would like to address the board to follow through, I think that's appropriate.
Yes, come on up, please. Introduce yourself and tell us about your project.
I'm Susan Summer. I'm the Executive Director with Bennington County Habitat for Humanity. The North Branch Development Project was something that this affiliate contemplated as far back as 2015. We build affordable home ownership opportunities for people who earn between 30 and 80% of the area median income. These are hard-working people in this city and in our county. We talk sometimes in terms of affordable workforce housing, and when we do that, we start to separate people. We all need affordable housing, and all of the people who are now homeowners, 5 of them in the North Branch neighborhood, are people in this community who work very, very hard and worked hard to become homeowners. Now they're part of your tax base. Before, at 296 North Branch Street, there was a derelict house in foreclosure that had been that way for a number of years, to my understanding. Our Habitat affiliate purchased that lot. It was a 1-acre lot, took down the building at an expense because there was asbestos in it. We took care of that cost and removal. There was also an outbuilding on that property we got rid of. And right next door to it on a .2 acre lot was a small trailer at 320 North Branch. That's the curb cut that we've been talking about that we need to finish off. There was an elderly woman living in that trailer, and one of the local churches, Pastor Blue is a part of that, was able to get her out of that into better housing. I mean, she was living in a trailer where the cold came right through the floorboards and the side walls every single winter. We removed that trailer, also again an expense because of asbestos, in the window frames of the trailer. And then next door to that was a house which is still there at 334 North Branch Street on a 0.8 acre lot that we rehabbed and sold to a Habitat qualified family. And that then permitted us, with the help of our engineer, Chris Panesi, to develop a 6-home neighborhood on a street that's now called Corcoran's Way in honor of a gentleman that you all know very well who, as I have been told, did a lot of good things for a lot of people but never really wanted to take credit for it. And there are a couple people here in the audience tonight who experienced his generosity. Here we have a perfect little neighborhood in the town of Bennington that's serving the needs that, according to the town plan in October of 2015, recognized housing for folks of all income levels as being critical to your economic development and to be keeping this town going. And now we have this development that our Habitat affiliate was very grateful and proud to be able to be a part of in partnership with the town of Bennington. Something that I found very interesting today when Attorney McClintock drew my attention to it was an article in the Bennington Banner about the Monument View Apartments, which is really an incredible opportunity as well for people of incomes earning about 60% to 120% of the area median income. Just trying to find affordable housing, which often seems to be an oxymoron in the state of Vermont, is difficult, and now these apartments exist. A lot of money went into those, $7.3 million, and if you average that out, that's about $304,000 per unit. And I know that there's Vermont Housing Conservation Board money involved in that, as there is with our home ownership programs. All Habitat affiliates in this state are able to participate in that. But our Habitat affiliate is building houses on average for $110,000. And that's because homeowners are putting in sweat equity on their houses, 200 hours per every person in those households who's 18 or older, and it's because we have volunteers who've gotten hepatitis and who come out on a regular basis, and groups of volunteers too, and help to build the houses. So there's no cost for labor. We could build 3 houses for what it costs to build 1 apartment at the Monument View Apartments. And not only are we building houses and creating homes for people, but we're creating home ownership opportunities. That's critical. That's in the town plan as well from October of 2015. More affordable home ownership. The Southwest Vermont Economic Development Plan, which also came out about the same time, called for more affordable home ownership. And the Bennington County Regional Plan, which also came out about the same time, said we need more affordable home ownership. You have an organization right here in Bennington County that's doing that, and that's Bennington County Habitat for Humanity. So I'm not blowing our horn, except that I am, because I want you to know how hard we all work and how hard the volunteers work. We're so grateful to you for telling us how we needed to build Corcoran's Way, to Pearl for coming up with the name for Corcoran's Way, and to you expecting something out of us, which is build it to our specifications, and then we will consider taking over dedication. That's a great benefit to the homeowners too, because they're not going to have to bear the cost of that. The town is partnering with them and partnering with Habitat to keep those houses truly affordable for the people who are working so hard to become homeowners and wouldn't have had the chance if it wasn't for the Bennington County Habitat for Humanity program. Thank you very much for your support of us and for your gracious consideration of the work that we are all doing together to make sure that affordable housing isn't an oxymoron, that it truly means something here in Bennington County and in the town of Bennington.
That's great. Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from Habitat that has anything to say about this project that would like to at this point? You don't have to. I guess we would like, probably, I speak for this whole board when I say it, we would really like you to know how much we appreciate what you're doing. And North Branch Street is really, really looking beautiful. You've done great work out there, and I agree that the partnership has been very nice. So when you come to the town first and say, what are the requirements and how can we do this right, it makes it a lot easier for us to consider something like this. So thank you very much for getting off on the right foot and staying on the right foot. So, yeah.
May I just...
Would you like to ask a question? Or
No, I'd just like to make a couple...
Okay.
Pontificate? No. Just give a little perspective on how the name Corcoran's Way was chosen. It's done in honor of Timmy Corcoran, as many people will know, who had any contact with Timmy. He was all for the underdog and those who were less fortunate. He was always pulling for people that were struggling. And I want to give you an anecdote about Timmy. When he was diagnosed with cancer, was at the same time that we had the public forum here in Bennington. And Timmy couldn't eat solid food, could barely drink water. But the night that all four of the different committees came together, we had a pizza party downstairs, and there were about a dozen pizzas left over. And I straggled behind, and Timmy asked what was going to happen with those pizzas, and one of the volunteers said, well, they'll probably be thrown out. And he said, like hell they will. And he looked at me, and I'll never forget it. He said, do you know anybody that's hungry? And I was shocked, and I was impatient to get to the next meeting, and I said no. But that question haunted me the rest of the night, and as I went home. And over the next couple of days, I heard through Pearl that Timmy had showed up at her house that night delivering a pizza. And Timmy went around town delivering those pizzas to other members of the community. He never said a word about it himself, but that was the kind of guy that Timmy was. And appropriately enough, it's been 5 years on the 8th that Timmy has been gone. So I just wanted to convey that.
Thank you for that story, Jim. Stuart, what kind of emotion are you looking for on the acceptance of the public way here?
Well, I think ultimately there would be a motion to accept Corcoran's Way as a municipal highway. There are two documents. There is an order, and then there is a certificate of completion and opening of a highway for public travel. Both documents would be circulated for board signature. Ultimately, the certificate of completion and opening would be filed with the town clerk in our land records. But there is the issue of the fact that there is still work to be done there, and perhaps Mr. McClintock could address that.
Yeah, I've had regular communications with Stuart about where we were in terms of getting completion, and the head of the highway department has been out there and said there are at least 2 items, and I've heard of one other that's is going to be addressed with the zoning administrator, which is making sure we have sufficient number of trees planted. But there's a curb cut that needs to be closed and another curb cut that's going to require an apron. Habitat did 15 curb cuts, or excuse me, 5 curb cuts for $15,000. So we estimate that the cost for one apron is going to be $3,000, and to close the other curb cut is going to be about $1,500. So we would propose to put a bond in a escrow account that I would hold, subject to an escrow agreement that the town manager would approve, that would restrict the release of that funds until either the parties agree or there's a need for that money to complete the project. And we're agreeable that that should be part of your motion.
And that's an acceptable
That is acceptable.
solution to you, Stuart? Okay,
Yes.
so, thank you. So the motion we would be looking for would be a motion to accept the certificate of completion and opening?
That would work?
I would move that.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other conversation from the audience? Any other conversation from the board? No? I think we should move the question. All in favor of the certification of completion and opening? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. Habitat, thank you very much, and we look forward to getting that last curb cut done. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Yes, on to the next one. That's the thing about you guys, you're never done. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a climate change resolution. This is something that was an idea that was brought to us by citizens. It came in both through conversations and also in a written form, and our board asked Jean and Jeannie and Bruce if they would take a look at it with, well, I guess with yourselves and with neighbors. So Jeannie, would you like to tell us what the process was and then maybe read what you have?
Well, I really do want to thank climate advocates for their advocacy of this, and particularly for Barbara for being there through the whole process. And Jean and Bruce and I met and tried to make a resolution that we felt would both honor what we were able to do and also provide some milestones so that the select board can be held and the town can be held accountable. So I feel really comfortable that that's what we've done, and I'm very, very happy about that. So I'm happy to read the resolution.
Before you do, I guess I
Yeah.
would just say, Bruce or Jean, do you have anything about the process that you'd like to talk?
Yeah, I just wanted to make it a little clearer. So the three of us met, and then we met with Barbara in addition to us meeting. So it was actually a two-step process. So that's the only clarification I
Well,
wanted to make.
I think, yeah, okay,
Super.
great. Excellent. Well, what you've delivered to us is a nice piece of work. Madam Vice Chair, would you like to read what you've come up
I'd
with?
love to.
Please, thank you.
Resolution concerning the climate emergency. Whereas the atmosphere of the Earth and its surface is experiencing higher and higher temperatures, and these higher temperatures result in harm to people, society, global security, and plants and animals in the natural world. And whereas we are worried about our children and our grandchildren, and we want a safe, just, and livable community. And whereas we have only 10 years to cut carbon emissions by half in order to avoid the worst consequences of a warmed climate. And whereas these circumstances require efforts on the scale of the New Deal and the international efforts to rebuild Europe after World War II. Whereas the town of Bennington supports educational efforts to deepen our understanding of the impacts of climate change. Whereas the town supports the state of Vermont's mandate to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to meet state goals. Whereas the town of Bennington will lead by example to explore efficiencies and transitions to cleaner, less carbon-rich energy sources. Whereas the town of Bennington strongly supports efficiency measures, including but not limited to weatherization programs and transportation options, including accessible public transportation, bike lanes, pedestrian pathways, and infrastructure for electric vehicles. Whereas the town select board supports the town of Bennington Energy Committee's charge to prioritize the energy conservation, efficiency, and renewable energy strategies outlined in the Bennington Town Plan, and to report their recommendations to the Bennington Select Board for consideration at a public meeting. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Select Board of the town of Bennington hereby declares that a climate emergency exists, dated at Bennington, Vermont, this 11th day of November 2019.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
So are there, why don't we do comments from the board first, and then if there are comments from the general public, we'll take those afterwards. So anyone have anything that they would like to say about this? Bruce, go ahead.
Just one point of elaboration, and that will be, I will look forward to the time when we can hear from the Energy Committee and amongst ourselves, set some even clearer goals about our reduction in the use of fossil fuels. That, it seems to me, is the day that I will be particularly happy. This is a nice interim step. I like the declaration, but I will be happiest when we are able to actually talk about relatively short-term goals to reduce our use of fossil fuels. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
But this has my full support. And by the way, I don't know if anybody else has heard about Bill. I read this to Bill, and this has Bill Scully, and this has his full support as well.
Great. Thank you very much for taking time with him on that. Other comments? Jean, go ahead.
Yeah, so this doesn't end up in a drawer somewhere collecting dust, because we will change. We will not be here that far into the future. I really hope that the community will stay on this. I know you guys will, but future generations, decades to come, really hope that there's always a constant presence, because we can't, it needs to stay in the forefront, and we hope that you'll help us do that.
Jim, you must have something to say about this.
I congratulate them on the efforts that they're making. I think, Vermont's carbon footprint overall is minuscule. Nevertheless, it's going to take a cumulative approach to making a difference. It's not going to happen with just our little green corner of the world. It's going to take nations to act together.
However, having said that, I will say that you are all welcome to come to the next Energy Committee meeting, which is on November 26th, which is a Tuesday, at 7 p.m. at BCRC Conference Room.
Great. And the agenda is to begin working through the topics of the
47
47
priorities.
recommendations in the town plan, right? Chad, anything from you on this? What's your perspective?
Thank you for your work.
Okay, great. I too would just like to take a minute and thank everybody who worked very hard on this. These things are tricky, and words matter, and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to work hard on figuring out how to set the right tone for our community and for the Energy Committee without committing to things that we couldn't necessarily commit to in a vote like this. But it's, I think, very well done. And would anybody like to speak from the audience on this? You don't have to by any means, but if you'd like to, you're welcome to. Please identify yourself and tell us what you got.
My name's Walt Klinger. I actually live down in the Grand Duchy of Pownell, and I'm a backyard sugar maker. And I do the annual tapping of my trees and boiling syrup. And I'm a member of the Vermont Maple Sugar Makers Association. I go to their meetings, I attend their seminars. As you're probably aware, Vermont is the largest United States producer of maple syrup. Last year, over 1,800,000 gallons were made in Vermont. I happened to make a little over 5.5, which I was delighted. But the season was very hard to judge. I normally tap trees in February. The ground didn't thaw out. There was no snow cover. We didn't get any sap flow until late into March. And I talked to a number of local producers, and they had hard times getting going and getting the season going. And long term, if we want to keep Vermont at the head of an important agricultural piece that we contribute to not only Vermont and the United States, but also the globe, we have to do something about trying to do whatever we can do to stabilize climate variation. And it becomes a major problem down the road. The health of the trees are at stake, the ability of the trees to produce sap, all the things that go into it. Even though we're getting more efficient at it all the time, it gets harder and harder because of the climate factors we can't control. We got to see the warm days during the day and the cold nights to drive the sap flow. We got to have sufficient snowpack on the ground to drive moisture so that we can get the sap flow. And it's really an important piece. And anything that can be done should be done to further the goals of trying to get a handle on climate change and doing what we can do so that 100 years from now, 5 generations from now, we'll still be able to make a good maple product here. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to make this step. As you know, I think that we have to start now making those steps to confront climate change. And Jim's right, we can't do it alone. There has to be sufficient effort from the whole world, but we are a small part of that world and we have to do our part. And I also want to tell you that I really feel that, and I think most of the climate advocates do, feel that the Energy Committee is absolutely key and central to our efforts. And so we do intend to keep track of the Energy Committee and participate, interact with it in whatever way we can. I also want to say that we really feel like collaboration is extremely important, that none of us feel like we can come in with a list of demands and expect you guys to hop up and do our bidding. And we really appreciate the exchange of views, the exchange of ideas. We really appreciate you sitting down with us to work out what it is we want to say. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Barbara. Dane. Sorry, Mr. Concert.
Oh, that's fine. My name is Dane Whitman, and this is my first select board meeting, and wasn't expecting it to be on this topic, so really happy to be here for this historic moment, and really hope that it gets passed. I think it would be amazing. I just wanted to make a point that in addition to seeing that you guys can't necessarily make a mandate that certain goals are going to be met, but I see this almost as an opportunity, really, as far as meeting these goals could be great for Bennington in so many different ways, as far as just new opportunities for, projects, development, careers, things like that. And also, as far as being a small place goes, I think we really have the opportunity to lead by example and show what the rest of the world can do. So look forward to working with with you on this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, those are all good points. Other comments from the audience? Any other questions from the? If not, I think I would accept a motion on this. Have I already done that? No, I'd accept a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have 2 seconds. We'll let you work that one out, Nancy.
It could be June.
All in favor of passing the resolution concerning the climate emergency, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Unanimous approval. Thank you very much for taking time today. And we do look forward to your ongoing participation with the Energy Committee, where the rubber will hit the road. So, thank you again for that.
We can also look forward to us badgering you.
Squeaky wheel.
Okay,
gets
next
grease.
item. Sure. So this next item is something that's a little bit different from how we have done things in the past, but it's not really very different at all. In many ways, it's looking forward to budget season, Stuart. And for everybody who watches our process, you may not know how this works, but the select board sets priorities, and the town manager and his staff work out budgets, and priorities are kind of worked through that budget process, and then at the end, we, not at the very end, but close to the end, we see what amounts to a mostly final budget, and we have an opportunity to participate a little bit in steering that as we feel necessary. So it felt worthwhile to the vice chair and to me to tick through what we think our priorities are, Stuart, for this upcoming year. And I know I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with you about this, but I don't think much of this will come as a surprise to you, because as everybody knows, most of our direction is embodied in our town plan. And you've heard me say that before, but pages 2 and 3 of our town plan are essentially the summary goals of what we would like to achieve. And these include, number 1, really working to support and strengthen Bennington's role as an economic center. So we will be looking forward to continued support of the BCRC and the BCIC and the BBC. We're particularly looking forward, I think, to continuing and possibly considering expanding the town marketing effort that we started last year, if we can figure that out. We'd like to see the town continue to support the private efforts, such as the Bennington Redevelopment Group and Grow Bennington and other efforts like that, and to partner with workforce and development and education as able. We also feel like the support of creative efforts such as the Lightning Jar and Four Corners North will be important in the upcoming year. Jim, would you be willing to close that door, please? Thank you. The second item is to plan development and maintain the town's historic settlement pattern. And we've heard a little bit about this already, but the Planning Commission is undertaking a pretty sweeping inquiry into form-based zoning. And we'll be hearing more about that as time goes on. And I think this board has a preliminary interest in where the Planning Commission lands, and we're looking forward to hearing more about that. The third goal is to recognize the importance of significant natural, scenic, and historic resources. And so in particular, Stuart, I think we'll be looking for, looking at the expansion of the Loomsack Park and the possible trail opportunities to the One World Conservation Center, an evaluation of what Willow Park needs and trying to figure that out, the completion of Stark Street and the Merchants Splash Pad. And at some level, it would be really good to review our outdoor recreation needs, both in Bennington and North Bennington, and consider a little bit the carrying capacity of this community and in terms of what we need for staff and partners to make sure that we're not overworking our park staff or under-supporting our nonprofit partners along the way. The fourth thing is really to think about adequate housing. We heard a little bit about that. And so the push here is housing that's affordable and trying to figure out ways that people who want housing can afford it. And primarily this will happen through supporting our partners through the Shires and the NeighborWorks and the Habitat for Humanity, but also through the Bennington Redevelopment Group that's working on the affordable housing as part of the Putnam Block and the hospital's Healthy Homes Project and others. And I think building into the budget at some point, further consideration of options for the Ben High building, which we've talked about quite a lot, but what might be some possibilities for that. The fifth goal that we'd like to see going into budget season is to provide a safe, convenient, and efficient transportation system. Based on our conversations, I think this means really working hard to see if we can get the Benmont Avenue redevelopment project going, to get the Applegate pedestrian connection to the school done, which we heard about, to work on trying to finish the Kosher Drive pedestrian-friendly connection across that very dangerous intersection. Continue to work with the various resources and agencies to try to get the Ninja Path done to connect the town of Bennington to the college and North Bennington. And of course, to make sure that we're in position for the Miller's Toll Bridge reconstruction project in a couple of years when that comes. And another item that we'd like to sort of add to this, I think, is just a little inquiry about the sidewalk, revisiting the sidewalk plan and making sure that we're up to date on that. I know, Jeannie, that was a concern of yours along the line. The sixth priority for us is the ensure that the community facilities and services are sufficient to support a growing resident population and the economic needs of the community. So this means finishing a lot of things, finishing the sewer plant upgrade, finishing the IACP police evaluation, finishing the PFOA work to the extent that we can, continuing our efforts to keep water bills low, but trying to get the water trucks off of Bradford Street, improving the rec center and the parks, supporting our fire department, and critically the emergency medical services, so we'll have to look at how that fits into the budget again this year. And I think also some notion of how we get ready for the elements of Act 48 that may be coming our way vis-a-vis the recycling law and the other components that may be coming through Act 148. And the last item on this is actually a kind of cross-cutting item that affects all of the previous items, which is to promote the safe and efficient use of energy and utilization of renewable energy resources. So we just kind of got done talking about that, but every single thing we've already talked about should have the lens of looking for safe, efficient use of energy and utilization of renewable energy. I think we just passed that resolution, and I think it's safe to say that that means a lot to our board. So I've taken a little bit of a liberty to summarize where I think our board is for Stuart going into budget season, but if anybody else has comments that you'd like to add, this would be a good opportunity for you to do it.
I think you hit everything.
Okay. Well, probably not everything, but hopefully the highlights of things that we've been talking about and working on. And Stuart, I doubt there were too many surprises in that for you, but hopefully it's a list that you might have been expecting, and for everybody who's watching at home, this is probably the best description of what I can give for our priorities for the upcoming budget year. So no actions required on this step. I think we'll know a lot more when we start seeing budgets, and that will be, when can we expect those meetings, Stuart? Early January?
You will receive the budget sometime before the Christmas holiday timeframe. I'm expecting department budgets and agency budgets just before Thanksgiving.
Right.
I have the meetings as the 4th, the 11th, and the 18th.
Yep.
Were they in this packet? Did I miss them?
In January. And town meetings the March 2nd.
They were in a memo a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
Say that again then.
January 4th, 11th, and 18th.
Are those
Right.
Saturdays? Okay.
We
Yeah.
generally
And then-
don't need the 18th, but we have it as a placeholder.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So Jean, that works okay with your plans?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, no action required on that item, but thank you for tuning in on that. Stuart, what have you got for us on your manager's report?
I'll try to be brief. We're making really good time tonight, so let's keep going. On the PFOA front, contracts 8 and 9 are out to bid. You've probably seen the ads in the banner. These are the last 2 contracts which will bring municipal water to portions of Chapel Road and I believe Upper East Road. The other contracts 5 through 7 are underway, and although no homes have been connected as of this point, there are projects that are moving along very, very well. Some are stumbling a little bit, but we think everything is moving along in pretty good shape on the PFOA front. I know the Morgan Spring delivery system is important. We continue to go negotiations. It may be now that we are perhaps slowing down a bit on those negotiations. As you know, we have given kind of our bottom line to the folks who are interested in the financing, and they are mulling that over and seeing whether or not they can meet that requirement. So we'll continue to hear from them, I'm sure. The recent news about the opioid land lawsuit settlements, I've sent on most of those articles to our attorneys, and recently, in fact, I think it was just early last week, the Attorney General's office put out a missive to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns organization recommending that towns perhaps join the settlement proposals that are being bandied around in the Ohio District Court. Our attorneys have indicated to me that they are preparing a response to that, which will go to the towns that they are working with. We don't have anyone else yet formally joining us, but there are several towns they are very close. They are recommending we not join because our lawsuit is broader, it carries more defendants, and they think that we should not, at this point, opt in to any of the settlement proposals that are being bandied about. And finally, the IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, have completed their visits to Bennington. Last week was their last of 2. I know they held a couple of public forums during the week. Last week, they met with and held some focus groups with our officers on an individual and communal basis. So now they are back to Washington, D.C. They will take the policies and procedures and there was a substantial amount of data we had to provide them that our folks have worked hard to pull together. And they will then review that information, review what they have received. The survey, I think, closes on November 16th. So we've got just another week or so for folks to go online and do the survey. And they'll pull all that information together and present it, be prepared to present a report to us and to the public either late December or early January, depending on how the schedules, holidays, and other things work out. So that's where we are with the IACP. And that's all I have.
All right. Questions for Stuart?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bruce.
And he and I have spoken about this. I appreciate the work that the staff has done to pull together the policies that we have received. 2 points that I would like to make. One is that they should be posted on the town's website in some format that they can be read easily by the public. And secondly, the actual policy that I couldn't find is one that's actually not in there yet, and that is the one on our methodology that was, I guess, the select board had agreed to use. I think it was a policy, but I'm not sure how it was adopted. So if we need to adopt it as a policy, we can do that. But for the sale of properties, once
they've been acquired through tax sale and
through all that process.
Right.
So that whole process, as I recall, the select board had made a policy about that.
I believe that's true. It's just not one that has, I think we've put into writing and formally adopted. I think it was adopted at a meeting. So we'll have to
some of
dig
these
that
things
out.
it's a fine line between practice and policy on some of these things.
This I think we've replicated it several times. So it seems to me this is a policy that we need to adopt and we need to make it public. And so I would urge us to try to find that language.
And I can't say for certain. I was out much of last week, some with illness and some not. But if these policies are not yet up on the web, we certainly intend to put them there. So they may already be up. I don't know whether my staff completed that task last week.
Okay. Moving on to upcoming agendas. The first thing I'd like to ask this board is, on the December 23rd meeting, there's been a request to move that to December 16th. So I'm not sure how people feel about that, December 23rd, getting a little close to a holiday that many people celebrate. is there any preference on the board's part? I think the idea is that we would maybe meet on the 16th just for warrants and essential business, and then take a deep breath as we plunge into the multi-meeting January budget season.
So we'd meet the 9th and the 16th?
We'd meet the 9th and the 16th, but the 16th would just be for warrants and essential business.
Yeah, I prefer to meet the 16th rather than the 23rd.
How's that work for you, Jim? Bruce, you?
That seems fine.
I prefer to cancel altogether, but we can meet on the 16th.
Dang, you gotta love this guy's honesty. Yeah, all right, that's great. So for our next meeting, we have an umbrella topic coming up, which will be on marketing strategies. Shannon Barsati is pulling that together for us, as far as I know. She's not here, but she'll be pulling. Do you know, Stuart, who she's contacted?
I know that BCIC, oh, Lord.
BBC.
BBC, thank you. There are too many Bs and too many. BCIC, BBC, who else is she reached out to?
Chamber, right? Wasn't the chamber the
chamber,
other? So
yeah.
that it's downtown, townwide, and regional.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we may also be seeing first drafts of budgets sometime around then, too. But all I have right now on the...
Donald, that meeting is also the second meeting on the bridge,
that's right.
bridge number 6 on Route 9. And I do have a request that'll be coming to you. It comes every year around this time for some financial support for the Sophomore Career Summit, which is being held in April of this coming
And we
year.
put it in the budget this year.
I believe we did.
We did. I know, I'm quite sure
But
we did.
They're making a formal request, and it'll either be in my manager's report as an action item, or we can put it on the agenda. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Donald?
Yeah.
Will the Vermont Begins Here, will that also be included in the marketing? Okay,
Is that right, Dan? Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we are then going to cancel the meeting on the evening of December 23rd.
Okey-doke.
And we'll have the meetings then on January 4th, budget meetings, 4th, 11th, 18th. And we're looking at regularly scheduled meetings on the 13th and 27th of January. All right? Okay. All right. Other business. Who has anything that they feel is worth sharing with the community? Why don't we, yeah, go ahead, Bruce. No, go ahead.
Okay. I've received communication from a number of people in the community, and I had been bothered by it. This is a repeat of previous practice, it appears, and that is the parking of tankers on abandoned rail lines in and around Bennington and North Bennington, and probably Shaftesbury, I'm assuming. And I know that it's an issue that this board has tried to do some things with in the past. It is my suggestion, at least, that we figure out a way to write to our federal delegation, in as much as realistically, this is really federal territory. And I did happen to look at the regulations, and they are, they do preempt the state, though I think the state ought to be put up a little bit more of a fuss than they are doing. So maybe we want to talk to them as well. But the problem is that the language says that the feds control this so long as they are in transit. And apparently, in transit means sitting outside houses in North Bennington and Shaftesbury and Bennington. And that strikes me as a tricky piece of lawyering if I've ever seen one. So I'd like us to, at least to commit to writing to our federal delegation regarding the parking of these tankers in a way that really gets around almost all the other safety requirements that they would have to have if they were just actually with big propane tanks. That would be one thing. A second option is that we could request T.J. Donovan to join in a lawsuit that New York is taking on, along with New Jersey, and I forget a number of other states, that dealing essentially with this preemption question. if we feel like we're wanting to, I'm going to write to TJ anyway, but as an individual. But if we feel like we want to tell TJ what we would like him to do, that's another option. Those are my...
That second option seems much more, kind of promising to me in some ways. So this is something we've struggled with for a number of years. And Stuart, I know you've had a lot of contact with both state and federal delegation over the years. Would you like to briefly address that? It's not on the agenda, so.
Yeah.
It's not.
You know, we have reached out to, I think, mostly focusing on our state delegation and hoping that they carry the word forward to the federal level. I mean, it truly is an issue that, unfortunately, VTrans, the Vermont Transportation Agency, does not follow through very aggressively with this kind of storage. I think the wording that Bruce has talked about, as long as they're in transit, perhaps leads us in perhaps an opening and a door that we hadn't really considered in the past. So I would be glad to draft a letter both to the federal delegation and also a copy to the AG's office indicating Bennington's desire to see this practice cease.
Great. Since we're not making decisions at this stage, would you be willing to bring it back at the next meeting?
I'll
Great.
be glad to do that.
Thank you for consideration at the next meeting. Anything else, Bruce?
No.
Okay.
Oh, other than to encourage anybody who hasn't yet filled out that survey, go to the town's website, get on the survey, and fill it out.
I have three things. Empty Bowls, if anyone knows about Empty Bowls, is this Sunday from 4 to 7 at the middle school. If you get your ticket ahead of time, it's $10. If you buy it at the door, it's $15. And I know you can purchase them at GBIX. There may be other locations as well, but I know you can get your tickets there. It's, I think, my favorite event of the year. It's just fantastic. So go on Empty Bowls website and you can read all about it. And I just want to make another plug. As many of you know, I use Green Mountain Bus to get to work and back every day, Monday through Friday. I found myself without a car on Saturday, and I needed to get to Bennington College to glaze bowls for Empty Bowls, and I rode the bus, and it was free. I mean, it's just amazing to me. If you open up your mind and you think about where you need to be and when you need to be there, I bet there's a bus route that could get you there. And the other thing is, I just want to take a moment to congratulate everyone at MAU who had anything to do with the musical last weekend. It was astounding. Every time I see one, I come home and say, that was the best one. And then the next year, I say the same thing. It was just an amazing performance. So it was so much fun, and congratulations to everyone.
I'd just like to note the passing of Mert Cross, our former town foreman, also an employee of the town for 34 years. Mert was just a really good guy. In the summers that I was in college, in one winter, I worked with Mert, and I think it's fair to say, and I think Stu will back me up on this, it really was not a bad word to be said about Mert. And he truly was unflappable. Never saw him get upset. And he was just a good and dedicated individual to this town. He was 91 years old and the father of 10. So thanks, Mert.
That's great. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Jeannie? Chad?
Nothing time.
No? Okay. Well, we unfortunately have the need to go into executive session on a contracts matter. We could be getting out early, but instead we have to talk about contracts. So
We're not going to take any action afterwards.
we're not going to take any action afterwards, Bruce. So I would accept a motion to go into executive session if one was forthcoming.
I will move that with that consideration.
Second? Chad, second. All in favor? Aye.